What is going on, boys and girls? Happy Monday. And it's not a bad Monday if you're an Arsenal fan, let's be honest. Manchester City blowing a 2-0 halftime lead at Shite Hart Lane, and Aston Villa losing at home to 10-man Brentford. I mean, who could write it? I decided to hold off giving my match review video for our 4-0 win against Leeds until after those results, because I do think we're at the point in the season now where when we're discussing an Arsenal result, it kind of goes hand in hand with the City and Aston Villa results. And so, yeah, I just thought I'd hold fire and give my overall thoughts to another weekend of Premier League football once I knew what City and Villa had done. And so I think the simple thing to say is that you have to look at this as a positive weekend for Arsenal. You know, this weekend was a huge weekend in the sense that Arsenal were coming into this game against Leeds with an absolute enormous amount of pressure and doubt and questions being asked about us in terms of, do we have what it takes to win the Premier League? Are we bottling it? Are we the worst team potentially to win the Premier League in the history of the Premier League? You know, there was a lot of negative connotations and a lot of big questions being asked of this group of players and Arteta and his coaching staff going into this weekend. And I think at the end of the day, we have to sit here and feel pretty good about how this weekend has turned out for us. And it goes back to what I've been saying a few times now, which is my underlying confidence for why I think Arsenal will in fact win the Premier League this season is probably 50% because of how overall good we've been and how consistent we've been, the fact that we have a really big squad to call on, and the fact that I think these players are just desperately hungry to not come second again. But it also comes down to the simple fact that our main title rivals that we would have picked as our title rivals at the beginning of the season just aren't doing their job or aren't looking like the teams that we thought they were going to be. And I talk specifically about City and Liverpool. I do think Liverpool, I don't know, it's hard with Liverpool. I do think recently they've looked quite good, but they've just got massive inconsistencies in them. And so they're just way too far behind to be an option right now in terms of seriously kind of claiming any hope of winning the Premier League this season. So they're out of the race in my opinion. And then Manchester City are the last kind of realistic horse in the race, and they just aren't doing the business. They're just not looking like the City of old. And so that's where a lot of my confidence comes from, is that I think all in all, I don't think City are going to have enough to go on this kind of 10-game run that everyone's talking about them potentially doing or having the ability to do it. I don't think they have the ability to do it. Yes, they've made some really good January signings in Gahey and Semenyo, but I just don't think it's going to be enough. And I think throwing a 2-0 lead away against an injury-ravaged Tottenham, down on form, down on belief, when you know that that's a massive win, potentially, I just think that's a sign of where City are right now. So, yeah, focusing on the Arsenal game, as I said, that was a huge game. Leading into that, there was a lot of doubt, a lot of question marks, and I thought to get a 4-0 win away at Elland Road was a really impressive result. The starting 11 was interesting. He went with Nketiah on the left. I knew it was going to be a pick between Nketiah and Calafiori, and he obviously just felt like Nketiah had a few more minutes under his belt and probably was in a better position to start the game, which I didn't have an issue with. I thought it was really interesting that he went with Havertz in this kind of, I guess, the 10 role. You know, he went with Rice and Zubimendi, and then he put Havertz in there. He dropped Odegaard. I don't think we can sugarcoat it. He dropped Martin Odegaard for this game. And I think that was a big surprising call. I didn't think he would do that. But what I thought was really interesting was that despite dropping Odegaard, he didn't put Eze in there. And if I'm Eze, I must be thinking to myself, like, what is going on here? Because when Eze came in, the conversation was around how long until he takes Odegaard's position. And we're now at a point where Odegaard is playing so poorly that he's actually being dropped by Arteta, which is unbelievable when you think about how much Arteta loves how much Arteta loves Odegaard. And to think that when he makes that decision to drop him, Eze's not being given the chance to start in the 10 role, that is worrying, or at least it should be worrying for Eze. So he went with Havertz in this kind of 10 role or second striker role. Saka obviously didn't end up playing. He got injured in the warm-up, which is very concerning, and that's not the first time that's happened to an Arsenal player in the last season and a half, so I'm not quite sure what's going on in the warm-ups for Arsenal, but I really hope that isn't a serious injury to Saka. I don't think anyone's come out and really confirmed the extent of the injury or the seriousness of the injury. I know Arteta mentioned a niggle and not wanting to take a risk, so I really hope this is just a case of being very precautionary, with the idea being that we want him ready to go for the second round of the semi-final of the Carabao Cup against Chelsea. But maybe he's going to miss that and maybe a few more games, which would be a real shame, because although I don't think Saka has been particularly outstanding this season, that's not a player that you want missing a lot of games of football at this point in the season. So fingers crossed that's not a bad one. Look, I'm not going to lie, this game was at 2:30 a.m. my time, and it was a couple of days ago now, so my recollection of the game is not that great, so I'm not going to go into too much depths. I said in my preview video that I wanted Arsenal to really kind of come out and put their foot on Leeds' neck from the very first minute and really kind of make a statement and show something different about the way they approach football matches, particularly after what Arteta said about being more courageous, being more aggressive, and all that kind of stuff. I was hoping that Arsenal would come out and really kind of put it on Leeds from the very first kick, and I don't think we did that. If I can remember correctly, I was sitting around that 21st minute mark thinking to myself, I'm not seeing a lot of different stuff here from Arsenal right now. Yes, we weren't really in any kind of danger of conceding. Leeds weren't troubling us, but we weren't really doing much either. So it wasn't the most impressive of starts. However, we did get the opening, the first goal from Zubimendi. It was a really well worked piece of play from Madueke, who I think, for all of Madueke's faults, and, I haven't hidden away from the fact that I don't think he's personally the player that we should have signed in the summer. I would have rather Nwaneri be given more chances as Saka's backup on the right-hand side, but, let's give Madueke his props. He wasn't expected to start this game. He was brought in at the last minute and he got an assist and a goal. So you can't really knock him. It was a great ball in, great header by Zubimendi. We go 1-0 up. We get the first goal, which is vital in these types of games. And I was happy for both players because I think Zubimendi had owed us something after that performance against Man United. The second goal, I think in the game it was given as an own goal to the Leeds goalkeeper, but in my opinion that was rightly overturned, I think, today, and the goal's been given to Madueke. That ball was going in. If anything, it almost looked like the ball had crossed the line before the keeper had actually got hands to it and fisted it into his own net. So I think that was rightly credited to Madueke. And at 2-0 up, I was feeling very confident going into half-time, and it was just a case of how many could we get after that. Gyökeres had a great chance to make it 3-0 before he did make it 3-0, where Trossard, first time kind of looping ball over the defence, and all Gyökeres really had to do was kind of run onto that one or two steps with the ball, bang, left or right the keeper, 3-0. And instead, he took too many touches, he looked slow, he gave the defender way too much time to come back, and by the time he got his shot off, the defender was able to block it. And that's one of those moments with Gyökeres where you just think to yourself, what am I actually watching here? Because in Portugal, I feel like he scores that goal 9 times out of 10. I can go and watch highlight clips of Gyökeres for the last 2-3 seasons in Portugal, and he absolutely blitzes past the defender and just rifles out into the back of the net and looks like an absolute super machine. In England, with an Arsenal shirt on, the guy looks like he's walking in quicksand, or running in quicksand, I should say. He took way too long there, and that was a really poor piece of play for Gyökeres. Ultimately, he does get his goal. He does get the third goal. Great bit of play from Martinelli, right-hand side of the field, crosses it in. Gyökeres, bit of a one-on-one battle with the defender, gets the better of him, gets a kind of leg, shin to the ball, goes into the net, 3-0, game over, happy days. And then from there, it was just about, can we get another one? The rain came down heavy in that second half. Like, I think for the last 20-25 minutes of that game, that was some of the heaviest rain I've seen in a football match in a long time. I thought Jesus took his goal very, very well. That was a really nice goal. And, it's nice to see a nice goal from Arsenal here and there. We don't seem to score too many aesthetically pleasing goals these days, so that was a really nice work goal. It was good to see Odegaard kind of come on and look a little bit more direct, a little bit more aggressive in the way he was trying to play. Not so much from a dual point of view or trying to win the ball back, but just when he got on the ball, I felt like he was trying to look forward more, go forward, be more direct with it, and I thought he looked quite good. Eze got like 8 or 9 minutes, which was not really enough time to do anything. Martinelli came on and affected the game. Jesus came on, affected the game. So, yeah, all in all, a really positive result, a really positive response to what's been a tricky couple of weeks in the Premier League. And I actually really like the way Declan Rice kind of approached this post-game in his interview. He talked about the fact that if you would have spoken to any Arsenal fan at the beginning of the season and said at this time of the year, Arsenal will be top of the Premier League, top of the Champions League, nearly into the final of the Carabao Cup and still in the FA Cup, we would have all bitten your hands off. And so it's just about kind of embracing the position we're in and realising this is an opportunity for us to create legacies as Arsenal football players. And so I really like that mindset, and I think he's going to be a really important figure within that dressing room and on the pitch for Arsenal over the course of the next 4 months. And so, yeah, I'm feeling good. I think last weekend's result really threw me off the back of the 2 draws prior, and I started to get really worried about, is this going to be another season where these players just fail to live up to the expectation? And I think this result has kind of allowed me to breathe a little and think to myself, okay, it was a blip, it wasn't good enough, the players have recognised it, Arteta's recognised it, and we've put in a performance that shows that we are able to kind of get back on track. And so I think it's just about kind of holding faith and realising, as I said, that I just don't think City, Villa are going to pose the threat that some people think they will, or that they need to in order to get in front of us. I think we will be able to be consistent enough between now and the end of the season to get over the line. Now, does that mean people start questioning how worthy we are as champions, whether we're some of the best champions in the history of the Premier League? Probably. I don't think we're going to be able to get away with that, but it is what it is. So, yes, positive weekend for Arsenal, 6 points clear, where we need to be, and now it's all eyes on that Carabao Cup semi-final second leg against Chelsea at home, where again it just comes down to finding a way to get the win. I don't care how we do it, I want to be in the final of that one. I think that's massive. This is a massive opportunity to put some silverware in the cabinet early doors in the season and really use that as a platform. So I want us to go all in on that game against Chelsea on Tuesday and reach a final and then have something to look forward to. So yeah, in terms of the game, going back to the game quickly, I don't think there were any particularly star performers. I think you've got to give it to Madueke, goal and assist when he wasn't expecting to play. I think that's worthy of a man of the match mention. Outside of that, I just think it was a solid team performance, and I think everyone did the job that they needed to do. So yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comments. How are you feeling after this weekend? Are you feeling more confident? Are you still concerned about our overall play? Yeah, let me know. I'd love to know what you guys are thinking going into the next couple of weeks and months. So yeah, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you on the next one. Bye.